Elementary OS is a very contentious project, and the latest release, Odin, is no exception. Today we're going to take a look at everything new and everything wrong with Elementary OS 6 Odin, so stick around. Hello, beautiful and amazing people. I am Jay, and you are watching DS Tech Media, where we cover everything tech, specializing in Linux and open source software. And today we're going to be looking at Elementary OS version 6, Odin, the latest release. And if you are not familiar, Elementary OS is a Linux distribution based on Ubuntu, stable release. It came out a couple months ago. They follow a you get it when it's done release model. And unlike other Ubuntu derived distributions such as Linux Mint, Elementary develops their own desktop environment called Pantheon. And if you come to the open source section of the Elementary website, they provide this infographic, and it shows you the layers of the entire OS. Down here at the bottom, we've got the Linux kernel, GNU, all the core libraries. Then there's the Xorg display server and windowing system, the free desktop component. You've got the Ubuntu, the GTK interface and toolkit, and the GNOME desktop libraries. And we get the Pantheon platform, which is all of their visual libraries such as Granite, and then the Pantheon desktop shell. And then up top here, you'll see Elementary OS apps. So also, unlike most other Linux distributions, Elementary ships with their own out-of-the-box apps that are designed just for Elementary and the Pantheon desktop. They even have their own AppCenter, and part of what makes Elementary OS unique is the amount of third-party apps developers create for it, and they've managed to attract so many developers by streamlining and specifying their development toolchain and guidelines, building off of the GNOME development guidelines, but then further specifying them with libgranite as their own visual design style that's a subset of GTK, and also making use of the Vala programming language API for their apps. So let's jump right in. They provide a brand new welcome and configuration app. They give you a basics guide, community support, also getting involved. And clicking them opens up their website. They have a page for learning the basics, which opens up in the Pantheon web browser. They've done a lot of work improving the browser since it started, but honestly the load times are still unimpressive. They also have the Get Support page here, and you can select different apps, and it'll basically take you to the Elementary Community Stack Exchange. One of the major changes here is we now have a dark theme and 10 accent colors to pick from, which is actually very cool. You can enable nightlight, which will make the colors of your display warmer at night to prevent eye strain and sleeplessness. Housekeeping, old files can be automatically deleted after 30 days, save space and help protect privacy. Online accounts opens the online accounts dialog located in the settings. Currently, the only thing supported is Calendar Dav and IMAP. Get some apps. They have a link to open up the AppCenter, and we're ready to go. And here we have the Elementary AppCenter. And one of the major changes with Odin is that AppCenter no longer includes Ubuntu or GNOME Software Center apps. They only include third-party apps developed specifically for Elementary OS. The other major change with AppCenter in Odin is every app is a flat pack. And this is kind of a bold move, but it is really impressive that they've pooled enough developers that they can fill all of the app categories. Well, aside from games, under video, we've only got 3, one of which is included out of the box. Writing and language, 3. System, 11, and 4 out of 11 are already included. Office has got a little bit more. Internet's got a handful. Development's got a good bit. Education's got 4. Communication, only 2. Accessories is full. It's got several pages worth. And in my opinion, this is a little bit of a step backwards for elementary, because prior to this release, you had all of the apps you would find in the Ubuntu Software Center in here, and they were standard Debian packages and flat hubs included. And I think it's kind of a mistake to only allow elementary's flatpaks in here. You can install or sideload flatpak reference files from FlatHub. Once you install an app from FlatHub, from then on, all of the FlatHub apps appear in here as well. And the reason Elementary gave for making this switch is primarily sandboxing and security. Flatpaks are sandboxed apps, and you actually have control over all of the permissions that the apps are granted to your system. It's a lot like how Android handles things. In the case of Flatpaks, the weakness that I would cite is the size of some of the dependencies, because some of the apps require runtimes and libraries as dependencies, but it can also be somewhat large as far as storage goes. So here we are on the FlatHub App Store, and let's see, I'm just going to go ahead and grab a Flatpak to see how big of a difference it makes for the App Store. And I'll go with YouTube Graphical Downloader. And while we're at it, I might as well update all of my apps that are already installed. And here in the downloads is the YouTube Downloader GUI, and we right click it and it apparently will open in something called the sideload. And it asks you if you want to install an untrusted app. This app provided solely by developers, not been reviewed for security, privacy, or system integration. Download size up to 733.7 megabytes. Other apps from this distributor may appear in AppCenter. I understand. Install anyway. And when you're updating, you get little change logs for what's new in every app that you're updating. And the sideloader also asks if I want to move the reference file to the trash and open the app. So lots of little, just tiny things that make it feel a little bit more polished. There's a lot of attention to detail. Okay, so now with this app installed, we should have a lot more apps in the App Center, because FlatHub apps will now also be included. So games was empty, and now look, there are all of the games that are available through the FlatHub App Store. Let's see, audio. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then everything in non-curated is from FlatHub. Media production, these two are elementaries and the rest are FlatHub. Internet. So yeah, adding the FlatHub repository significantly increases the number of apps in the App Center, and that's definitely something that you're going to want to do. Alternatively, so if we want to install software from the Ubuntu repositories, the stuff that is now missing from Elementary's App Center, we can of course use the apt package manager via the command line, or install the graphical program Synaptic Package Manager. Starting with Ubuntu 2004, the Ubuntu Software Center is now packaged as a snap instead of a standard Debian package, but I'm sure you could install it. Another option is to install the GNOME Software Center. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And here it is. It does work. And let's also go ahead and install Firefox. So there we are. We've got Firefox installed now. So let's talk about what else is new. Well, you can actually right-click the desktop now to get your display settings, system settings, or change wallpaper, which is something that's been missing from Elementary since its inception. And the new wallpaper comes in a daytime and evening version, and I believe it will switch automatically between the two if you set the theme to work that way. Another interesting change is the right-click context menu for all of your apps. You can set always on top, always on visual workspace, but they've added the ability to move to workspace left or right. And the way Pantheon's window manager works is, unlike GNOME, which uses workspaces in an up and down fashion, Pantheon does a left to right fashion. So if you hold super key down, it actually does a tiling view, and we can move to workspace right, and that moves the window to the right workspace. Additionally, it shows you the shortcut keys for that, so it's super alt left to right. So let's go ahead and do that. Super alt left right. And that menu is actually missing from third-party apps like Firefox does not show that menu. Also, there's an option to take a screenshot. And this is convenient if you want to screenshot what appears in that particular window. You have that available to you. They've made improvements to the notification center. Apps now group their notifications, and you can clear them individually or all of that particular type by hitting the little broom icon here. On laptops, the battery indicator that would appear here also now can show you Bluetooth and mouse, any type of wireless or connected devices information for their power levels as well. And if we go to the system settings, down at administration, there is a system tag here. And if we come over to firmware, there's now integrated firmware updates, and that's handled via the Linux vendor firmware service. If we go to applications, under permissions here, thanks to everything being handled via Flatpak, we can individually manage what installed apps can access since they are all sandboxed. So the graphical YouTube downloader I installed only has access to the network, but you can grant it access to home folder, system folder, devices, network, Bluetooth, printing, secure shell agent, and GPU acceleration. So kind of works like an Android app permission system now. And the theme and appearance settings we mentioned before can be changed from desktop. So you've got wallpaper, and then appearance is where the accent colors and default or dark modes can be set. You can also have it run from sunset to sunrise. It'll use the light mode during the day and switch to dark at night, or you can manually specify it as well. They even have a dyslexia friendly text option, which I'm not sure what that does, and we can switch from small, large, and larger text. You can also set the theme accent according to the wallpaper. If I come over here and switch the wallpaper real quick, and it went to pink, green, blue, yellow. And I really do like that. That's quite nifty.
And also, Elementary has for a long time been able to have the icons in the top panel here switch to light or dark depending on the wallpaper as well. If we come over here to dock and panel, can turn the panel translucency off and give it a solid dark panel there. Can give pressure reveal for the dock here and change the way it displays when there's overlap. So lots of nice built-in theme settings there.
Other changes to the desktop include better multi-touch support with options like swiping and managing the workspaces with multi-touch gestures. Unfortunately, one thing that hasn't changed that is a default that I don't understand is the lack of a minimize button in the window controls. Elementary's default is maximize and close, and they're on opposing sides of the window title bar. So if you want to minimize a window, you can click on its icon to do so, or in the right click menu there is a hide option there. And I do think that this is a terrible default, and they don't include any way to change that. However, you can change it by installing the Pantheon Tweaks app, and we're going to show you how to do that right now. It used to be called Elementary Tweaks, but with Odin it is now called Pantheon Tweaks, and it's from a developer that I'm a big fan of, and that's Philip Scott. And you're gonna have to install a PPA, or personal package archive, in order to do this. You can get the copy and paste for that PPA from the Pantheon Tweaks GitHub. And now if we go into the system settings, there is a tweaks entry here. We've got a bunch of little options here that are pretty useful. We can change the theme from here, change the icons from here if we want, cursor, sounds, and most importantly here at window controls, we have a bunch of options here. We got Windows, which moves them all to the right, adds the minimize. Ubuntu moves them to the left. Elementary reverse, replace maximize to minimize, add minimize left. macOS on the left, close only. Bunch of options. You can also change fonts. Oh, and I should mention that with Odin, the default font has changed to Enter. We can also make adjustments to animations, change the background color to the terminal from here. And there's a few options for the video app as well. And while we're at it, when it comes to customizing, something a lot of people don't realize is the dock, which is called Plank, actually has some features that are hidden, and for whatever reason Elementary doesn't really advertise them. But if you hold control and right click anywhere in Plank, you can get the preferences dialog, and you can do things like change the theme. We can move the position of Plank, choose if it's what displays it's going to be on. You can even change the alignment for it, and change the icon alignment as well, and the sizes. All the behaviors and all can be changed here. You can lock the icons, but most importantly, the docklets tab has a show desktop icon that you can add to the dock. That way you can minimize all your windows with that. You've even got Clippy, which is a built-in clipboard manager. It'll remember all your copies and cuts so that you can pull them up from a list. Kind of nice to have. There's also, a CPU monitor. So I just thought I'd mention that. Okay, let's move on to changes with the apps. We've got a brand new app called Tasks, and it is compatible with the CalDAV or Calendar Dav protocol, so that you can sync your calendars and tasks. And it also integrates with the calendar application so that your tasks can appear on the calendar if you have them. So that's kind of a nice improvement. And you can set dates, locations,
And of course you can set colors as well. So that is an entirely new app that they've added. It comes out of the box. They've also rewritten the mail app. So getting it set up takes a little bit of finesse. If you're using Gmail, you have to go into your account settings by logging in through the browser. Make sure you have IMAP enabled, and I also had to allow less secure apps in order for it to work. And with the rewrite and Flatpak, each message is now opened within its own sandbox, so this increases general security while using the mail client. It's a lot more stable now and just generally improved overall visually. But all in all, there's no new features really added, and just like it was before, it's still a pretty basic mail application. But for a lot of people, that's all they'll really ever need. As I mentioned earlier, only IMAP is supported in the online accounts integration, but Elementary has moved to handling all the account and credentials through the Evolution Data Center, which is the same thing that GNOME and Ubuntu uses, and they'll be adding more account capabilities in the future. But this means that having your IMAP set up once, it should work for not just mail, but also for tasks. They've also made some changes to the interface for the camera app. It now has built-in brightness and contrast sliders and can switch between cameras if you have more than one installed. But I think some of the more interesting changes come with Pantheon code or elementary code. Maybe it's just called code. The major change is that they now have Git project capabilities built in, and you can switch between Git projects. Closing out a project now closes any of its open files. You can create and switch between Git branches. There's a new line-by-line Git status in the gutter. Markdown support is now improved with what you see is what you get like editor, with shortcuts and also spell check support. There's a full text search within folders and entire projects with case sensitive toggle and regular expression support. Vim mode has new and improved Vim commands, as well as elementary code defaulting to command mode when enabled. And there is a new save and restore state that now remembers where your cursor position was when you left off upon closing or reopening. And you have the 3 built-in themes. You can enable the code minimap over here for larger projects. If you come to preferences, go over to extensions. This is what you got: brackets completing, detect indent, editor config, highlight word selection, markdown actions, outline for Vala. You have pastebin service integration, preserve indentation, spell checker, strip trailing whitespace. You can add a terminal in the code editor, Vim emulation, and words completion. And there is the code editor right there. But the idea here is that code acts as the integrated development environment for Elementary OS, and it's actually a pretty decent editor. I don't currently use it, but I have spent a little bit of time in it in the past, so there's that. So, final thoughts on Elementary OS 6 Odin. Full disclosure, I've been using Elementary OS for many years. Since Freya, I've run it on all of my laptops, so I've been a pretty big fan and supporter of the project. Filled out lots of bug reports and even spoke online with the developers of Elementary many times. To be honest, this release is a bit underwhelming. The improvements to it are welcome and they're decent, but they're just nowhere near some of the jumps forward we've seen in the past. I know that the AppCenter has been a big focus of the project for several releases now, and they probably had to do a lot of work on moving everything over to be Flatpak only. Also, earlier I said that there were over 200 third-party apps for elementary, and that was actually true in the past. Since the move to Flatpak, there's only around 60, but a lot more in the pipeline. It's just a matter of the developers making the switch to the Flatpak format. So if you don't see the one that you were using in your older version of elementary, it may be on the way. I understand the reason they switched to Flatpaks, but I do wish that we still had all of the default Ubuntu apps in the AppCenter. I think that would be a big help. And I also think that the Pantheon Tweaks app should be something they consider installing by default. It's not even available in the AppCenter. You have to add a PPA in order to install it, but it seems like something that would be nice to just have built into the OS. I'd really like to see them add Gmail and other mail-specific accounts integrations, because it's not fun spending all that time trying to figure out why you can't log into your email, and that's going to drive some people away. Elementary's never been my recommendable new user to Linux distro, because it's just never been the easiest way to go if you're brand new. You definitely need to have some understanding to get everything working. And as much as I love elementary, I really wouldn't be looking to upgrading to Odin if I was running Hera right now on my laptop, which I'm not currently, but I would probably hold off a while before making this upgrade. So that's my opinion, and that's from a longtime elementary user. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, how good or bad of a job I did. And if you do like the video, please hit the thumbs up. The engagement really helps, and we're growing in users on the channel at a slow but steady pace. Also, if you leave a comment, that would really help. And if you like tech content and Linux and open source stuff especially, hit that subscribe button. I'm also in the middle of a series about producing music with Linux, and part 3 of that will be available soon. But in the meantime, parts 1 and 2 are over 2 hours in length together, so check those out. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.